So we are back with a brand new episode of Walkin and Talkin with Tim, and my guest today is John Cruice. Now, John owns John Cruice Photography. I said it, I did it. Photography.
There you go.
Yes, I got to get that right. So, and John's out of South Philly. He's a Philly boy.
Right.
And now, let's start from the beginning. We talked a lot, me and John. And John is from Lansdowne.
Yes.
Originally, right?
Yep.
And still has family there.
I do.
Right? And so, John, first, tell the world John, tell them what you do at John Cruice Photography. Jesus, God.
So, I am first and foremost a storyteller. I just happen to use a camera to make it happen. And that's why I got the portraits, because everyone has a story worth telling. And I decided to figure out how to turn those stories into images. And so that's what I did. So I do two main forms of business. One is for families and pets. I do artwork for their home. And then for businesses, I tell their brand stories. So I got my first big boy job at Vanguard.
Look at that behind us. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's like a perfect spring day. And I was, got an entry-level job in a problem resolution. So, that was like when paperwork was bad, we had to investigate it, then go tell someone this is what you need to do, this is what you need to sign, et cetera, et cetera. And then that moved me into analytics. And so we were doing process improvement, and me and two guys got assigned the job to implement it, and then we had to go teach ourselves statistics.
How to analyze.
Right. And so we literally got a corporate card, went to Barnes & Noble, bought books, and then sat in a conference room and said, all right, now we got to teach ourselves this. And so we did. And then I did that for a number of years at a couple different departments. And then I was analyzing processes. Then I was analyzing investor behavior, and then web user behavior. And in the meantime, I was, Mr. Creative, so I was like, I should have been an architect. So I got into Drexel at night, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to finish this architecture degree. And then, so I did that, but career took a different path, because
you said
life happens.
Life happens.
And the financial collapse happened, and nobody was hiring architects, and
your buddies were like, don't do this.
So yeah, all my old architect friends were like, do not come in this. They're like, you have a business degree? They were looking like how I was dressed. They're like, you're not going to make that kind of money doing this either anyway. And so a friend of mine was working on the design side at Vanguard and said, come over and do user experience design. Like, I don't know anything about web design. He's like, it's an architecture with a different building material. Do that here. And so I did that for a number of years till I got, ran out of stuff that was interesting, and photography was a hobby. Architecture was all consuming. I was going at night, I was working on projects over the weekend, and then when I graduated, all this new time. So I had just moved to the city, moved back to the city, back and forth. Just moved back to the city, bought my house. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna take this camera that I had, and I didn't know how to use it. Just wander around the city and start taking photos. And I started learning how to use the camera. And then I got into portraits. And then fast forward a couple years, and then all of a sudden I'm getting known for that.
Well, you said through COVID, headshots kept you alive, right?
Yeah. It was just like anybody who needed updated anything. I'm like, I'll take your photo, just to keep me afloat. But then through COVID is when I got aggressive with networking.
Right.
And that's probably how at some point you and I got connected. It's because most of my networking ended up happening in South Jersey, which is, I'm so close to the bridge, and that's where all the great networking groups were. So I'm like, all right, so I made a lot of connections. So here we are, and now I'm walking and talking.
I don't know what took you so long to meet me. You said you were at all the good networking events. So listen, no, but seriously, you've done a lot of other things. I mean, when you talked about the portraits, and you said you were collaborating with people for Instagram.
Yeah.
And doing portraits. That was a piece that kind of was like a stepping stone for you.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of cool.
So I used to just wander around the city, and I would do buildings, architect things, and the joke among architects is especially that are into photography, we would joke about it, if I wanted people in it, I would design them in. Right? We're very much into the structure, and where the building meets the ground, and shadows and shapes. Then I started doing street scenes of people in it, cafes and things like that. And then I would go to these Instagram meetups and just kind of hang out with other photographers. But there are people who digging around to see, we were actually coming up with an idea and then making it happen. And so then I got into portraits, and you and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
They were terrible, and I published them anyway. And I am a big
You gotta
proponent
start
of this.
somewhere.
In any creative endeavor, publish it and move on and get better. Like I think sometimes, especially in creative fields, people are they're waiting to be perfect before they start.
Yep.
And it's like that's not how it works.
Nope.
If you're not embarrassed by your previous work, you haven't grown. So publish it and then get better at it.
Put it out there in the world.
I eventually got better at it, and then eventually got good at it. You know. So.
Yeah, and so another cool thing about you is everything about you seems to have a story that comes along with it. So you talked about, your family history. You've got ties to Ireland.
Yep.
You've been to Ireland multiple times.
Yes.
And you said that a cool thing about your story with your family in Ireland was talk about your aunt with the letters, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Like no one knew.
No. So yeah, when my grandmother's youngest aunt had passed away, she didn't realize that there was still communication with the family in Ireland, 2 generations, because it just kind of stopped. That one aunt had maintained contact, and my grandmother was the oldest. She found these letters, and she saw the address, and wrote to the woman and said, "I think we're related." And it was. It was like, we could trace it back. We know exactly where it was.
And how many trips have you taken now?
I want to say I've been there maybe 4 or 5 times.
Just then you've seen these people.
Yeah, or they've come here.
That's crazy.
So like they'll come here, like different family members will, now it's more of the younger ones, like my younger cousins. And actually I don't even know like what we call them now, like because there's cousins that are my dad's age and there's cousins that are like, younger. But like they're traveling now, and they'll stop by, and it was like somebody will put them up in a house somewhere, like because we got enough family in this area. And it's like we'll find a bed for you and something for you to do. And then they do the same. If I step foot on that island and I don't let them know that I'm there,
geez.
I will never hear the end of it. So it's like you have to make a stop, right? You have to make a stop because that's what family does.
100%. But you also talked about your endeavors in. So you said you had at one point a show that you did at your buddy's chiropractic office.
Yeah.
So how did everything morph into that show?
So that was like, and it's funny, like now looking back, like my first year, I did all the wrong things given my expertise. Like I have educational career background in several different things, and none of which I applied to my business in my first year. Right?
It's always the way.
Kind of like like the old saying, the cobbler's kids has no shoes. But like that was like one of the first steps into me saying, my photography is different because I'm going to tell a deeper story.
Right.
And I'm not going to it's not going to be that that the photo looks good. I want that to mean something. And so it was a couple conversations around mental health.
That's the part I wanted to get to.
And especially in men, it's not a conversation we necessarily have.
Nope.
And it's like,
we talked about us. 2 of us talked about it.
Right. You bottle it up until it explodes on somebody. And
we talked about not going for help. You can say it.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
we don't ask for help generally.
No. And it's like, no. And this was about saying that one, mental health, and a lot of times the conversation is around mental illness.
Yep.
And that affects 2 out of 5 people. 5 out of 5 people have to deal with mental health. So that could just be daily stress. It could be anything, right? We're all dealing with it, but we ignore it.
Yep.
And so this was to say, let's have a conversation about the spectrum. And it doesn't have to be that you're suffering from something specifically. It could just be like, hey, life's hard. And this is what I do to get past it. And so I made a challenge for myself. I said, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm going to post on Instagram and Facebook 31 images, 31 stories every day in May. And the final day ended up being a show.
It's a good one.
I printed off each one. I put them up in I used my buddy's chiropractic office as the gallery. Yeah. And put up their story underneath, and invited everybody to come and come through and hear each other's stories.
How did that turn out? What was the reaction when people came in?
So there were 2 things that happened during the entire exercise. One is the number of messages I got from some people I knew, but some people I had who just stumbled across it. and they were like, I suffer from this. Thank you for sharing this. Like
Yeah.
the goal was, if I tell enough stories, it resonates with you.
Yeah.
Like that was the whole thing. And then in the show, a lot of those people were people I knew, or like 1 degree separation.
Yeah.
And it was like, you heard these conversations saying, I've known this person for years. I didn't know that. And it was like, it opened up like another layer of conversation to say, yeah, I didn't know that either until they reached out and said, I want to talk about this.
We do this all the time.
Like, okay, so tell me your story, and then I'm going to photograph it, and then I'm going to publish it. And you know, one of the challenges with that project is you have people who, they want to tell the story, and then they disappear because anxiety sets in.
Oh yeah.
And then you photograph them, and then they disappear.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I go to publish it, and I'm like, I do one last check, like, yeah, do you want to do this? And then like they disappear. And so like that was like part of the challenge. And then after about 4 years, it became difficult to get enough people to where it was like worth my time.
Right.
So I kind of like pulled it back. I have had people like talk about like, you know, if I partner with an organization, if I, you know, do it a different way, like is there a way to reboot it? And I'm totally open to it. But like, I just know that the logistics of it it's difficult. It's a lot of like a lot of legwork. And if, you know, at that point, ran out of people that knew me personally, it was very easy to blow me off, you know?
The other thing I did want to get to was your affinity for the Eagles.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. You said you have seats with some friends.
Yeah.
But it's a longer story. We don't have a ton of time left, but it kind of leads into what you just talked about. It kind of rolls off a little.
Oh yeah. So I mean, when the link opened and they were opening up for seat licenses, they were going through the lottery, and it turned out my friend had access to 4 seats.
I love this story.
And he was gonna, and he was like, and we were
I love what he said to you.
We were in our early 20s. Like he was the only one who like had money.
Saw the future.
Right. And he's like, I'm gonna get these. We're like, dude, that's expensive. He goes, here's the deal. Our lives are all gonna change, like marriage and kids and the whole thing. And he goes, and then we're gonna be doing all this. Yeah, we're gonna be doing like things that like we're not gonna like golf every weekend anymore and go out that night. He said, so I want 8 Sundays a year that I know that I'm gonna see you guys for the rest of my life.
And that's powerful.
You know, and that was like one of those things where you just go, I would not have thought about it then, but like.
But now you're still doing it.
We're now still going.
So listen, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
I am basically available almost everywhere. So my website's johncruice.com. I am on Instagram and TikTok at John_Cruice. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. I am on Facebook. So there aren't many people in the world with my name. So if you spell it correctly, you could probably find me or my dad.
Or your pictures.
Yeah.
And little videos with his face on them.
Yeah.
You're going to see him. Trust me, he's out there.
A little bit everywhere.
A little bit everywhere. Well, listen, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
This was very fun. We had a good day.
We did.
And to all you guys out there, keep on walking, keep on moving. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube these days. And we will see you next time on Walkin' and Talkin' with Tim. Peace.